When it comes to high-performance sports cars, it's pretty hard to beat the package of a Lotus. This is a British manufacturer that built its reputation on delivering lightweight, high-revving, mid-engine sports cars like the Evora, Elise, and Exige. Now for 2024, we are finally seeing the replacement for all three vehicles, and that model is here in the form of this 2024 Lotus Emira. It's essentially more of a replacement for the Evora in my eyes because it has the same supercharged V6 with a manual, but you can also get it with a 2-liter turbo 4 from Mercedes-AMG. So today we're actually out here in Malibu, California on this rather rainy afternoon to drive the new Emira. And the big question I want to answer, if you guys have roughly $100,000 to spend on a new driving toy, how does the brand new 2024 Emira stack up? Stay tuned to find out. So it's a little bit of a shame that it is starting to rain here in California. I thought it doesn't rain in this state, but the show must go on. So let's go ahead and talk about what's powering this Emira. Now, typically I show you an engine that's under the hood in the front of the vehicle, but because this vehicle is mid-engine, we're gonna start back here at the back because as you guys know, Lotus has been famous for taking a Toyota Camry V6, a Toyota 3.5 liter naturally aspirated V6 and adding their own tune and slapping an Edelbrock supercharger on top. And this engine, we've known it from the Evora for almost like 15 years now. It's the company's 3.5 liter double overhead cam supercharged V6 with an Edelbrock supercharger. I believe it has roughly just under 9 PSI of boost pressure. So it's a supercharged engine that's not very high boosted. And the power figures here are 400 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque. That's actually a little bit less versus the Evora GT that I tested about a year and a half ago, which had 416 horsepower. The reason being is because this is not the GT version of the car. It's essentially just the standard Emira. It all goes out through either a 6-speed manual, which is the transmission this car has here, or you can also get it with a 6-speed torque converter automatic. I'll actually be driving that later this week, so you'll expect to see a driving scene or a separate video on that vehicle. In terms of the fuel efficiency, it's rated at 17 in the city, 25 on the highway. And if you guys don't want this V6, the base engine is technically a 2-liter turbo 4 from Mercedes-AMG, delivering 360 horsepower. I'm hoping I can get one of those eventually. That'll be going on sale in the spring of next year, so you're gonna have to wait a little bit longer for that. In terms of performance, Lotus says 0 to 60 in around 4.3 seconds. We've got our testing equipment. We'll see what we can actually get. It has a top speed of around 180 miles an hour, and this vehicle as it sits is about 50 to 75 pounds more than the old Evora, but still, this is one of the lightest cars that you're gonna find at just over 3,200 pounds. Now, in terms of the cargo, I wanted to go ahead and show you that here because this is really one of 2 spaces you could put stuff back here. Lotus says you have around 4 cubic feet of space back here. And I have to say, I have a 22-inch roller bag that I typically travel with. It fits in here, but you can't actually close the lid because it's too shallow in there. So I actually have to put it in the inside of the vehicle behind the seats where there's no seats. So kind of keep that in mind. Something like the Porsche Cayman is going to offer a little bit more cargo space. But let's go ahead and show you guys the exhaust clip because this engine, as you guys know, is a supercharged V6 and it has an amazing sound. So let's go ahead and fire up the V6 and hear how it sounds real quick. Wow. I can smell it back here too. Woo. So when everything goes fully electric, which Lotus will be doing, I'm gonna miss the sound of that because for a Toyota V6 that's been tuned by Lotus, it is one of the sweetest sounding V6s on the market. So pick one of these up while you can. I'll be curious to see how that 4-cylinder sounds. But let's go ahead and talk about the exterior styling from back here. Now, as you guys know, the Emira is now Lotus's only internal gas-powered vehicle. The company is essentially saying that this is the last gas-powered vehicle. They're not gonna be doing any more. And I have to say, they did a fantastic job with the exterior styling. The rear of this vehicle has the typical elements that you'd associate for a mid-engine supercar. You can see it has a built-in wing. It spells out Lotus on the back. It's got these really interesting LED taillights, which kind of remind me of like a mixture of perhaps maybe a McLaren with some Ferrari. I apologize for how dirty the car is. This car is painted in dark verdant green. It's been, again, raining and gross here in the Malibu area. And then you can see down here the exhaust system. You've got 2 dual exhaust outlets, which are very, very dirty right now. The reverse light is down here. It's a full LED. But overall, let me know in the comment section below what you think of the styling. Compared to the Evora, which had kind of a circular LED taillight, I really much prefer the look of this vehicle. It just has a more exotic car look and feel. Now, as you can see also, the engine is visible back here because, again, Lotus decided to kind of put it under a piece of glass with a rear window defogger. There's also functional vents here, heat extractors that allow air to kind of come in and allow the engine to cool itself. There's also more functional extractors along the side profile. And then looking at the rest of the profile of the Emira, this one here is the first edition. I'm not entirely sure how many Lotus will build, but this is going to be the most expensive version. And at 173.7 inches long, this is about 0.7 inches longer versus the Evora. It has the same 101.2 inch long wheelbase. This car is about 2 inches wider, which again allowed Lotus to increase the interior space slightly, although they did get rid of the back seats. You can see the wheels. These are this standard 20-inch wheel at the back over here. I believe you actually have a 19 at the front. This is riding on a 295 by 30 ZR20. Now this model here I want to point out is the Sport Chassis designation. So we have stiffer springs, you have a 4-wheel double wishbone independent suspension, and you also have these Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 tires. Now if you guys want to spec in a touring specification, Lotus actually makes you choose before you buy the car whether you want the softer springs or you want the stiffer springs like this model here. It's kind of strange how they make you choose. You get Goodyear Eagle F1 Supercar tires, so a little bit less aggressive tire. These are going to give you obviously the most grip. There's a 13.5-inch vented drilled rotor at the back, 14.5-inch at the front with those upgraded brakes, of course. You can also get it, I believe, with painted calipers versus these black calipers. Now you can see the rest of the profile, very, very exotic. I love the inlets here, of course. This is the air intake for the engine. When you guys have a mid-engine car, you need to design that. You have the Emira first edition badge over here, and then these door handles, as you can see, they kind of remind me of an EV, how you have to kind of push them in and pull them out, which is a little bit different. The mirrors, as you can see, they're pretty standard stuff. I like how they're body colored. They have integrated turn signals, no sunroof or glass roof panel, as you can see, but I feel like Lotus should offer something like that, or perhaps even a carbon fiber roof. They're kind of keeping the options a little bit low at the time. I want to confirm this is actually a 20-inch wheel at the front. So you have a 245 at the front. So you have a 20-inch wheel front and rear, but it is still a staggered setup. So their tires in the back are 50 millimeters wider. Now, this to me is probably the best angle of the new Emira. I mean, this car looks like the combination of a Ferrari and a McLaren. And I have to say, even here in LA, this car gets a lot of attention everywhere in this dark exterior color, but it's pretty easy to see why. The front fascia is gorgeous. It's low, it's wide. It has these really interesting kind of extractor vents in the actual hood, which I sadly couldn't get the hood to open. I'm not entirely sure you're allowed to open the hood. At least a consumer is not allowed. You can see the headlights are full LED. You have kind of this new LED light signature with the LED daytime running lights and turn signals, LED low and high beams. Down here, of course, more functional intakes. You're going to need that, of course, to help with the cooling system of the car. And it's also a very low car, so there's no kind of actual suspension where it allows you to kind of lift the front end up if you'd like. But I believe the ground clearance is around 4.4 inches, so be careful when you're driving this thing. You can easily scrape it. But overall, compared to its main competitor like a Porsche Cayman, I have to say, this is going to get the attention that you're not going to get in a Porsche, and it really does give off, for me at least, baby Ferrari vibes, which is one of the reasons why you're going to go and buy a Lotus, because it just looks so different from the competition. So clearly the exterior of the new Emira is gorgeous, but what about the interior? This is where, again, Lotus has spent some money here. And I think they've really delivered an interior that feels a lot more premium and a lot more luxurious. Let me first show you guys the door panel of this car. First of all, there's all genuine leather covering the door panel with some nice stitching over here. The door handle here is just metal. The window controls also are one touch up down for all four. They have a nice clicky feel. You have a premium KEF audio system. That's a British high-end audio manufacturer. I've never heard of KEF before, but it sounds pretty good if you're an audiophile. I love the metal speaker covers. You can see around here, it's nice and leather covered. Down here, it's also slightly padded. You have some felt material in the actual door pocket, and overall it just makes a really great first impression. Now let me go ahead and get in this vehicle, and I have to say, when I was in my 20s, this was a lot easier. As I've gotten older into my 30s, it's a little bit of a annoyance to get into a vehicle this low, but as I get in and shut the door has a slightly clunky sound when it shuts, but again, this is a hand-built sports car. Now, you guys are probably wondering, where did Lotus get all this money to make this interior so nice? And that's because Geely, Chinese auto manufacturer Geely, actually bought up Lotus the last couple of years, and they've infused this company with the much-needed cash to give us an all-new interior, and it really shows. But let me first show you guys the key fob for the vehicle. You can see, compared to the Evora, which I tested 1.5 years ago, you couldn't even get intelligent access key. And this is an all new key. As you can see, it's got your buttons here for lock, unlock. You can open up the trunk, and you can also pull out an actual physical key, which I haven't tried yet, but there's a button here that you can actually pull out the key if you'd like. But this key is metal, it feels heavy, it feels really high quality, and I love the way it looks. The start-stop button is located right here by the shifter, and you can see there's a little red flap that you have to lift up, and I wish it kind of stayed up because it kind of falls immediately, but well, let's go ahead and start it up so you can hear the engine sound again. I mean, that's starting up in tour mode, and I have to say, this car just sounds incredible. It sounds special every time you start it up, and then if you want, you can switch the drive mode over into sport, and you can hear the exhaust opens right up, and it makes a pretty nice sound there. So we'll talk about that later on during the driving scene, but let me switch it back over into tour so you guys can hear me a little bit better. But looking at this interior, because Lotus got a pretty big cash infusion from Geely, you're gonna find some switchgear in here that is very familiar, and they actually went to Volvo to take some of the switchgear, and you're gonna see that throughout the interior. But let me first talk about the seats here. You can see these are the leather sport bucket seats painted in like this tan color, or colored in this tan with the Lotus kind of stamped in the back here. These seats look great, they're heated, they are power adjustable. You have a 2-person memory here on the driver's side. The seats, I believe, adjust in like 12 different ways. And the seats look fantastic, but I have to say, try the seats out for yourself because I find the seats to be a little uncomfortable for me. I wish that they were a little bit softer padding. I wish the bolstering was a little more aggressive, but I just found in my time with this vehicle, I feel like I'm sitting on the seat rather than eventually sinking in and sitting in the seat. So again, that's a very personal thing. Try the seats out for yourself to see how it works. You can see the steering wheel is a manually adjusting tilt and telescoping wheel, and it offers a decent amount of adjustability, but there are times where I wanted the steering wheel to go a little higher. It kind of blocks my view of the tack, but again, that's a personal thing. See how it is for you. When you actually are driving the vehicle, you can see the steering wheel itself have these interesting touch sensor, or not touch sensitive, but they're kind of like new controls that look like they kind of remind me of Volvo controls, but they're a little of a push button here where you can adjust the 12.3-inch instrument panel display. You have these turn signal and windshield wiper stalks that come from, again, Volvo, which is great. And then unlike the old Evora, which had all analog controls, you have a fully digital 12.3-inch display, which is slightly customizable. If I start switching the drive modes here, you can see it changes the look to give you kind of like a red outline. And then if you go to track mode here, it gives you an even more track-focused display, and it really allows you to kind of see all the necessary information that you need if you guys are planning to track this vehicle. It's a great system, and it also works really well with this touchscreen infotainment system. This is a 10.25-inch infotainment system, which I believe is developed by Link & Company. I've never heard of that company, but as you can see, it includes wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is fantastic. It's a good sized screen as well. You can see the CarPlay hooks up to my phone very nicely. It's quick and snappy and responsive. You also have a home screen here, and you can also go to your climate functions here. It's got just a single zone automatic climate control. Your 3-level heated seats are here. There are no cooled seats, and you can see here, you can go back to the CarPlay there relatively easily. This system here, I was surprised for something that's so, you know, I've never heard of this company. I think they did a really great job with just the overall look of the system. You can see there's your different widgets and whatnot. You can go to a performance timer as well. You can go show your G meter, you can show the downforce, and Lotus also does include a built-in GPS function, which, as you can see, that takes a little bit of time to load up, but most of you are gonna probably end up using your phone anyways to use the Waze or the Google Maps and whatnot. If you put the vehicle into reverse, you can see your backup camera is right there. It gives you trajectory, it gives you distance markers, it gives you parking sensors, and it also gives you a decent resolution. There's no 360 camera on this car, I don't believe, so you don't really need it for a car like this, but it also would be nice to have to keep you from curbing your wheels if you're going to be, you know, parking this thing along a curb. The rest of the interior, you can see, has some really high quality materials. I love the full leather stitching along the dash, which again reminds me a lot of Volvo. And in case you forgot, on the inside it says Emira First Edition to show that you've got a limited production model. There's more of that beautiful leather down here, and down here over the glove box cover, you can see the Emira is actually in the actual tabs here to adjust the air vents, where it's a nice little detail. You have these really nice feeling knobs and switches here to adjust the climate control. You have an audio knob here, which is again pulled directly from Volvo. A lot of the script here starts to make sense. You have a wireless phone charging pad here, hazard switch here, and then this manual transmission, as you can see, is very, very mechanical. It's so mechanical that you can literally see the freaking linkage over here. I love how Lotus kind of gives you a little bit of a window there that's a mesh metal finish where you can see the actual linkage. The manual itself is very, how do I put this, clunky. You have to really manhandle this lever to get it into gear. I've always been used to driving, you know, buttery smooth Honda manual transmissions, so this takes a little bit of getting used to. Pull it up here to go into reverse, but you can see here, once you get used to it, it's definitely a great transmission. There's also a 6-speed auto or an 8-speed dual clutch if you guys go for the 4-cylinder. Down over here, you can see the center console area has more of that leather stitching, beautiful aluminum trim, some piano black plastic. You can see it shows fingerprints and scratches, not really a big fan of that. You do have cup holders here, which the cup holders, they're a decent size. This is Rob's massive water bottle. Let's see if it fits in here. Sort of. It doesn't really fit, but hey, it's nice that Lotus is giving you that. You also have a center console area here, which is actually pretty deep. It has a USB-A and a USB-C charging port. Again, you can also plug that into your phone there if you need to connect the CarPlay, or you can use the wireless function. Above me here, for somebody 5'7", you can see the headroom space is fine. I could clear this wearing a helmet, but for taller folks, you might find the headroom a little bit less. You have a nice little microfiber material, Alcantara material on the roof, which is nice. The sun visors, you can see there's no mirror here. And then I do notice a slight quality issue. You can see this, I just need it to kind of stay up a little bit more, but hey, this is a hand-built car, so you kind of have to make some of those compromises. You're probably wondering, how's the back seat area? Well, there's no more back seat, unlike the, well, Rob probably can reach that better. Unlike the Evora, which had a back seat area, this just has this little shelf, this little partial shelf, which Lotus says there's like 6 cubic feet of storage space back here. Where? I definitely don't see 6 cubic feet. It can hold a 22-inch roller bag back here, but you have to ask this passenger to push the seat forward a little bit because the seat will be hitting the back of your roller bag. So I'm sad to say that the practicality of this car is definitely less. You do have, again, a great view of the engine back here, and if you see, you can actually see the linkage of the throttle cable kind of moving, although that's an electronic actuator, but it's great to see that kind of right in your view, which is cool. You also have leather around here, which is kind of nice. I kind of wish that Lotus had kept the back seat from the Evora. I think it would have been a nice little touch. The glove compartment, you can see, push that button, it opens up. It's a bin style, it's stamped, it's lined with felt. It's nice that Lotus is giving you that extra storage capability, but overall you can see the interior is probably the most surprising aspect. I mean, the exterior is gorgeous, but Lotus didn't have to make the interior this nice with this great a tech in it. It just isn't the most spacious interior, and it doesn't have the most actual cargo space behind there, but overall I think most of you, compared to the Evora, you're gonna get in this and it's gonna feel like a luxury car. So at long last, we are finally behind the wheel of the all-new 2024 Lotus Emira. And as you can see, I am joined by my very good friend, Mason from Car Confections. Hey, Mason, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, well, this is a fun drive to join in on.
I know, right? We've actually never done a collab together. Yeah. So I figured, hey, we're both here for the Tacoma Media Drive and for the LA Auto Show. And Mason has also never been in a Lotus or ridden in one or driven one yet. That's correct. So yeah, this is definitely a good car to kind of dip your toes in to try out a Lotus, right?
That's for sure. Definitely excited to see what this Lotus is all about.
Yeah. So, and you already kind of said it earlier, this thing kind of gives you like Ferrari vibes from the way it feels, the way it sounds, like you sit super low. I mean, if you guys have driven a Lotus before, like this is you're gonna feel at home in this car. It replaces the Emira, or the Evora, the Exige, and the Elise. It replaces 3 cars, but to me it feels more like an Evora competitor, and that right there is the whole reason why you bought a Lotus versus a Porsche, because of just the mechanical, visceral sounds and noises that you get with this car. And who would have thought that a Toyota V6 could sound like that, right, Mason?
It's pure joy.
It's shocking because, you know, this engine has started out life in like a lonely Camry, although the Camry doesn't have this engine anymore. So,
as we found out at this event, actually.
Right. So it's kind of a sad day, and it really shows like what this Toyota V6 can do when you give it to the right, you know, engineers, the right powertrain engineers to kind of tinker with it. And what's awesome is like literally from behind my head, you can see like the throttle cable moving around every time I put my foot down. And even though like this is a boosted engine, you can feel it, Mason. It has so much power.
Oh yeah.
Like it just kind of goes immediately as soon as my foot goes down to the floor, and you just hear everything. You hear the exhaust. We've been driving it in sport mode right now. There's also a touring mode, which supposedly will make things a little quieter, although the car itself is very stiff. Wouldn't you say the ride's really rough?
Yeah, this is definitely not the car for those of you who have back issues. It's a little low getting down in the car, and you definitely are going to feel the road textures, that's for sure.
Yeah, so the one that we're driving here, Mason, actually has the sport chassis. And what's interesting about Lotus is you have to choose before you buy this car whether you want the sport or you want the touring chassis. like you have to choose. Lotus basically says you have to pick, and
Really?
then that's what you're stuck with. So we're driving the Sport chassis, which is the more aggressively tuned. We've got the Cup 2s, we've got the firmer dampers, and we also have a tunnel that we're about to go through, and there's nobody behind us right now.
Perfect.
So I'm like, let's see here. I'm gonna go into first actually. Let's see here. I forgot the limiter kicks in pretty aggressively on this car. Okay. Another tunnel. There we go. I have a little time to redeem myself there. All right, let's see here. So I'm seeing, I mean, that sound is amazing.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm seeing one flaw right now with the car that I didn't notice until I started doing that. The tachometer, which this is an all digital display, is really hard to see because the steering wheel blocks it. so you're kind of going by feel, and this engine redlines at 6,800 RPM, which I actually think is a little low for an engine that you really want to rev out. I want it to rev a little bit harder, and that's the thing is the old Evora redlined it around 7,200 RPM. So I'm a little surprised that Lotus actually lowered the redline to 6,800, but the limiter kind of kicks in at around 6,500. So you kind of have to be careful because you felt it. It like really cuts the power.
Oh yeah.
It cuts all the fun. I'm like, no, I just want to rev it.
We're in a tunnel, Lotus. Don't you understand?
But yes, that sound is absolutely incredible, and it really just makes the whole visual and just experience of this car so much more enjoyable. And I'm going to try to find a straight road at some point, or on this, I guess, canyon road, and see if we can try to do a 0-60, because Lotus says it'll do it in 4.3 seconds. It's got a 6-speed manual. It's a mid-engine car, so you should be able to launch it fairly decently. But you know what? Why don't we just try it right here? Let's see. It's slightly
uphill.
Slightly uphill, but let's just see over here. Maybe we can find another straight road at some point. I have it in track mode right now, and I'm not going to do super aggressive clutch stomp. All right, it hit 60 in second, but we got 5.4 there, which is a lot slower than what Lotus has claimed, but we're also going 5% uphill, so I'll try it again. I think up ahead there is a little bit of a leveled out road, but this is literally the type of road that is built for Lotuses. I mean, this car weighs 3,200 pounds. I can't even remember the last time I drove a car that was this light. Maybe it was a Miata. I mean, the Miata and the GRD6 are the only two that are like lighter than this. But sorry, go ahead.
You know, I think that's pretty cool that they were able to make this vehicle as light as it is for as nice of an interior as you're getting in this.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, when Lotus got that infusion of cash from Geely, they essentially gave us finally a nice interior with all the leather.
Yep.
You have Volvo switchgear. I don't know if you noticed that, Mason. The switchgear in here.
Oh yeah, the wipers.
The switchgear and like even like that play button, that's Volvo.
Yeah.
Like the window switches is Volvo. Like, and that's not a bad thing to take like parts from. It's amazing. And we also have this new infotainment system, which I don't remember who manufactures it, but it's actually really good. You have wireless CarPlay, Android Auto. You have a 10.25-inch display. You have a fully digital display here. Although I really wish that the steering wheel came up a little higher because I can't see the tach unless I'm like hunkered down and staring at it. But overall, like, the interior gives you a great first impression. Now, what do you think of the seats in this car, Mason?
Honestly, I feel like the seats are pretty nice. They're definitely going to be on the firmer side, as you would expect. I mean, you're not going to get like a plush 7 Series seat in a Lotus, but I think it hugs me in really well, especially around a canyon road like this. Yeah,
the seats, they feel plush, although I will say for me, I feel like I'm sitting on the seat rather than in the seat, if you know what I'm saying. Like, I just want my body to kind of sink into the seat a little bit more, and for some reason, I'm just not feeling that. It just feels like I'm a little... like I'm sitting on top. But here, we're going slightly down here. Let's see what we can get on this little run. Let's see here. Track mode. .7 there, okay. Which is still a little slower than Lotus's claim. I mean, they claim 4.3, and that's with it going 7% downhill. So, I'm not entirely sure. Like, I was expecting it to be like low 4s on that run, but we'll try doing one more run up ahead and see if we can get a slightly better time. But
I think it feels pretty fast though,
it does, and that's the whole point. Like, the point of this car isn't 0 to 60 times.
Right.
Like, the point of this car is just the mechanical, visceral, the sounds that you're getting with it. It just feels like you're literally driving a race car.
Yeah.
Plus just being able to do that, oh my God. I mean, you don't get that feeling in a Porsche. I mean, Porsches are fun, but there's something about this car. Lotus just does an amazing job at tuning a chassis, and it really shows. And I think what's the best thing about this car is the steering. It has hydraulic power steering.
Does it really?
It does.
Okay.
It still has hydraulic power steering, and that's the reason why the steering is just alive with feel. You can tell exactly what the front tires are doing.
Gloriously old school.
I know, it's super old school. I mean, what other sports car offers this much mechanical old school feel? And that's kind of the beauty about the Emira, is like, it's a new car, but it also feels refreshingly old. And I think that's what's really, really cool about this thing. Now, in terms of safety tech, I may as well talk about that because this car is, or Geely owns them. They actually took some of the Volvo safety gear into this car, and so it has like adaptive cruise control, emergency braking. However, that is only on the automatic model. So we were driving the manual; it doesn't have it. The manual in this car is still a variation of like a Toyota truck transmission, and I have to say, I still don't love it. If for those of you who are used to driving like Honda or Mazda manuals, it's a little bit clunky and imprecise. You have to literally manhandle this transmission, otherwise it doesn't want to go into gear sometimes, which is super embarrassing. And I also kind of wish that Lotus put auto rev matching on. I mean, I can sort of heel toe. How are you, Mason, with heel towing?
Oh, not good. Not good at all. I mean, it's definitely a skill. If you're looking to buy a manual car, you probably might have that already, but I always do appreciate if cars give you that function to do it automatically.
Yes. Yeah, I agree, especially when you have something like that behind your head. I mean, you can hear the supercharger, you can hear the exhaust burbles. I have it in track mode right now, which puts the stability control in like a less intrusive setting, but it also gives you all the noises. We want all the noises with this kind of a car. But overall, like, if you guys are looking for driving nirvana, like, you should definitely be putting this car at the top of your list. Just know that it's not going to be the most refined or the quickest in like 0 to 60 times, but nothing else really kind of gives you this feel. All right, 4.69 there. It's like, I mean, it's fine. Like, that's the thing, is like, this car feels so much faster than that.
It's because it's such a mechanical experience in here. It feels like you're like strapped into the engine and just shooting off.
It's like, yeah, I do love this car, I have to say. I love this car on this road, but don't drive it in rush hour traffic. When I picked it up in LA, at LAX, and it was just in rush hour traffic. It was horrible. But now that we're back on a road that this car was designed for,
I do feel like this is very solidly one of those cars that you take out on the weekend and have a lot of fun with it. It's probably not the most practical for daily driving.
No.
Honestly.
Well, you saw there's no trunk space.
No.
So as you can see, I have kicked out Mason out of the passenger seat, and I've replaced him with Keith, my fiance. Say hey.
Hey everybody.
So Keith and I actually are spending the weekend in Orange County, and Lotus was so gracious enough to loan me the automatic version of the Emira. So basically we have the same 3.5 liter supercharged V6 from Toyota, of course, and it's still making 400 horsepower. However, it does make a little bit more torque, 317 pound-feet. This transmission is $2,150 extra. Do you think it might be worth that extra money, Lou?
Gee, I don't know. I'm kind of neutral on that one.
Well, let me just quickly, there's nobody behind me. I just want to do a 0 to 60 test really fast here.
Brakes are good.
There's a little bit of lag off the line.
Yeah, a little slow. Sounds great. Sounds amazing.
Yeah, so 5.3 seconds there. That's with a almost perfectly level ground. Now, the one thing I noticed about this transmission is it's a 6-speed torque converter automatic, and I suspect it comes from Toyota as well. I mean, Lotus has done what they can to kind of tune the transmission to be a little bit more sporty, and it's definitely trying hard to behave more like a dual clutch. In fact, I'm not the biggest fan of the transmission, to be honest. It's a little bit jerky. What do you think, Boo?
Yeah, I totally agree with that one.
Yeah, I want it to shift more like a dual clutch, and it seems like Lotus tried to tune it to perform like a dual clutch, but you can't get around the fact that it only has 6 gears when it really should have 2 more gears, and it still has this like lethargicness to it, but then it also will occasionally shift a little harshly, which is just really, really strange. We'll try another 0 to 60 run further up ahead here and see if I can get a slightly faster time by brake torquing it. But this model here that we're driving is basically a first edition V6. It's a little bit heavier than the manual because it has the automatic transmission, but we're still looking at probably just over 3,200 pounds. This thing feels like a race car, wouldn't you say, Boo?
Yeah, absolutely. It's gorgeous. It looks like just like one too.
Yeah, well, the engine is right behind you. You hear every sound, and you know what? Let's see right here. I'm gonna try it.
Oh, you're still in tour.
Oh, thanks for letting me know.
Oh, you're good.
Okay, there we go. The thing's a little bit laggy at times, but let's go ahead and see here. We're in track mode.
Wow.
Wow, really laggy there, but... All right, there's 5.2 seconds. So clearly this car does not have launch control, and I did try brake torquing it there. It didn't do a thing.
It made it worse.
I think it made it worse. So yeah, that is the downside with this transmission. It is just not up to par for the way this car looks. I mean, let's be honest here. It's fantastic in traffic. Like, I spent 2 hours driving to LAX from downtown LA to pick him up on Thursday night, and it took me that long, and I appreciated the automatic, but for a performance car like this, a race car, I think the manual is probably the way to go.
Yeah, for sure.
Now you can get this car with a dual clutch. It does have a different engine. It's got the Mercedes-AMG 2-liter Turbo 4, which I'd be very, very interested to drive because that will add launch control. But for those of you who were curious, you know, you had your eye on an Emira and you were thinking, should I go with the manual or go with the automatic because I'm simply too lazy to shift gears? Get the manual because it's about a half a second to a second faster versus this automatic. It's like,
Here we go again.
yes, because I want to see if I can get a little bit faster time without brake torquing. And I'm in track. God, that is terrible. Oh, it sounds good though. Woo.
Yeah, it's like unbelievably slow right off the line.
It's so slow. It's like it's like turbo lag, but it's just the transmission just like, oh, I don't want to shift fast. Sorry, you're gonna have to wait. And I can't do an aggressive like launch control or anything. It doesn't like brake torquing, and that was in track mode. So 5.2 is the fastest. That is again about a half a second slower versus the manual, which the manual is not the quickest anyways, but you don't buy a car like this for 0 to 60 times. So in my line of work, I get to drive a lot of fantastic high-performance vehicles, and I have to say, Lotus has always had a special place in my heart. Even though I never really loved the cars when I was stuck driving in traffic and in regular conditions, when you find the right back road, this car really transforms. It is literally a race car that's disguised as a sports car, and nothing else really feels like it. Nothing else really performs like it. Nothing else gives you that driving nirvana feel. I mean, Porsche can come close. McLaren feels a little bit more animated as such. And then of course there's Lamborghini with its V10, but there's something about a Lotus, and that's why there's so many people out there, a lot of enthusiasts out there that just love this brand. And I love the fact that Lotus got that cash infusion from Geely, because this new Emira, as a replacement for, in my eyes, really the Evora, this is a worthy replacement. Remember, this is the last internal combustion engine vehicle they're gonna make. And in terms of the numbers, 0 to 60 performance, we got 4.7 seconds. Isn't quite as fast as what Lotus claims, but that's not the point of this vehicle. The point is to find your favorite back road, to row through those gears, to feel that mechanical, visceral feel that you're just not gonna get in a lot of modern cars. And that's kind of where the Lotus Emira is one of my favorites, because it is one of the most mechanical cars out there. Love the fact that you get that nice sound from that V6. I'll be curious to eventually drive the 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder from Mercedes-AMG, but for those of you who want something that's like this with, again, one of the best Toyota powertrains out there, the Emira is definitely going to be the one you're gonna wanna get. Now, if you're looking to put one of these in your garage, remember, this is a toy, and it's really a toy that you can really use on the weekends, because Porsche says you can use on the street and on the track. This car you can use on the street, but you'd have to be crazy, and that's part of the reasons why people love Lotus, is because they tend to be a little nutty and they love high-performance cars like this. It is going to cost you a pretty penny, because a base Emira, which they technically don't have the base model out yet in America. This car was introduced to the world about 2 years ago, but because of supply chain issues, we've had to wait almost 2 years for this to show up in America. And the V6 version was just going on sale in the summer of this year. and they started at around $105,000 because all you can get right now is the first edition model, and this model here, as equipped, is around $105,000. In the spring of next year, you'll be able to buy the 2-liter Turbo 4. That'll start at around $99,000. Supposedly, there'll be a non-first edition that'll start at around $94,000. So again, you're not going to be paying a cheap price for this car, but because it's so mechanical, because it's so analog, because it's so rare, I imagine people are going to pay that all day long. But also keep in mind, if for around $100,000, you could also buy a Porsche Cayman or a Boxster. You could also get a new Corvette. You could also get a Toyota Supra for a lot less money, or even a Ford Mustang Dark Horse. But nothing else is going to have the exotic car looks and feel of the Lotus. But just be prepared to know that if you do buy one of these, I probably wouldn't want to drive it out on the street. And you could, but you'd have to be crazy. With all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2024 Lotus Emira. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook. And as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.